Welcome to the Don't Count Me Out podcast. This program is dedicated to stroke survivors, loved ones, and caregivers, medical professionals, and anyone interested in learning more about this devastating disease and the warriors that face it every day. Our mission is to share stroke survivors' stories of inspiration and hope, form friendships and community, gain knowledge and insight, and the courage to dream and explore new avenues as we find our way back to living. So, my friends, the Don't Count Me Out podcast begins right now. This is kind of a different show from what we normally do. The reason I wanted to do this was because all of us who are stroke survivors belong to a number of different groups. Reading through there, a lot of the people have had problems with family, caregivers, people that are trying to help them. And I think a part of it is a misunderstanding of what each one sees their role as being. Thinking about that, I was trying to figure out how can we show people a positive role model. And I think we were just talking about this a moment ago. When you look at each of our lives with Bob and Sharon unfortunately is not feeling well this morning. So Bob's going to be talking for both of them, which sometimes can be good and sometimes can be bad.
I'll talk a little quieter.
Bob and Sharon have been married for 30 years. They're the newlyweds in this group. Annie and Darryl have been married for 38 years next week. Bill and myself, before Bill passed away, we're coming on to 48 years. I think the numbers shows that we've got staying power, that we have found different ways to work with each other, respect each other, and make it through some difficult times. So using that as a basis to talk about a relationship between a stroke survivor and a caregiver, I'm hoping that maybe we can help to look at our relationships from our point of view only as to what we can do to make things better for everybody. Whatever you bring into a relationship, that's where the relationship begins. So if you have a relationship that is maybe toxic, aggressive, I'm always right, you're always wrong attitude, that's what you're going to begin with. If that's what you're facing, hopefully this will help you to begin to work on it. And it's not going to be easy, but it will be worth it. Darryl and Annie, let's start with you and find out, what do you think the secret sauce has been in your marriage?
That's funny that you would ask, because we actually were talking about this just recently. I think one of the things that Darryl and I have been pretty good at over the course of our marriage is we've just given each other space, which means like Darryl has his hobbies and the things that he loves, and he goes off and he does those things, like whether it's like fishing or playing basketball, or he meets up with a friend and he has dinner with a friend. And I don't have any reservations whatsoever. I recognize that while we are a couple, we're also individuals. And, I don't want to go out in a boat and sit with Darryl and fish with him. He loves that. I might rather just stay at home and enjoy whatever I want to do. And I think when we first got married, though, I thought we were supposed to be connected and joined together forever, and that we were going to like that. To have a true relationship, it meant that we had to love whatever each other was doing. And the longer that we've been married, the more I have realized. And again, I think we realized kind of early on in our marriage that giving each other space, you enjoy your hobbies and I can enjoy the things that I love, that then we can, when we come together, then we can just share those things that we love together, if I'm making any sense.
Okay.
And I think when we get to do our own thing, we develop ourselves and we become a better version of ourselves too. So I think that's one of our strengths, is we just kind of give each other space and we develop ourselves. And then when we come together, we just kind of get to enjoy one another's company and each other.
My point of view, kind of going hand in hand with what Amy just said, is respecting your companion, respecting their desires and what they want to accomplish, and helping them, support them. And she's always been a tremendous and wonderful support to me, especially during the the healing process and encouraging me and letting me know that she was there for me to help me. And I hope that I've been able to do the same thing for her.
Bob, how about with you and Sharon?
Sharon and I were real good friends for many years. We met when I was 24, I think, and we were just friends. We had a group of friends that we hung out with, and the friendship grew. We became a lot closer friends. Decided, this is what I want to do, and we love each other very much, and we decided to get married. From that, our love just grew leaps and bounds. We, as you said, we give each other our freedom. Like Darryl, I like to fish, I like to golf, I like to hang out with my buddies and shoot pool or do whatever, and she's the same way. We have a lot of respect for each other. The Lord brought us together. We rarely, if at all, raise our voices to each other. And when I had my stroke, she was there the whole time and made sure that she encouraged me and inspired me and kept me going.
Let me ask all three of you, and I don't know if the answers will be the same or different. When those times come, when there is a difference of opinion and there can only be one outcome, how do you get past that? Do you attack it and work towards the solution, or do you try to conquer and win the argument?
I just say, yeah, you win.
Yeah, smart man.
Happy wife, happy life.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't think Sharon's going to let you get away with that for long. Darryl, how about you and Annie? What do you do when you have a confrontation?
Well, when it comes to a decision that needs to be made, and there's only one outcome that can come from the conversation or from the decision making, we talk about it. She tells me her side, and I tell her my side, and usually it's her side that wins. So, okay, all right, that's good. Every once in a while, I am actually able to make a good decision.
And he lets you, right?
Right.
She's encouraging me to make a decision, and she supports me.
Well, I think we do try to find out what are the common things? What do we agree on, right? And then just hear each other out. I mean, sometimes, my goodness, like, I know you guys know this, there is frustration and there has been anger and sometimes you have to I'm one of these people is I think it's okay to go to bed mad, because sometimes you need to have some space. I am a communicator and I do like to talk a lot to Darryl, bless his heart. And I think that sometimes it's good to just kind of just take a little time out, regroup, and then be able to come back and just figure out what's common about what you agree on and then go forward from there.
That's a great point, and that's something that I think needs to be brought out for both the stroke survivor and the caregiver, to look at what the situation is and try to find the common ground. I know for Bill and myself, when we were first married, I think this is a very common situation with couples. Bill's approach is, okay, something's not right here. We're going to do it my way. It's either right or it's wrong. I'm right, she's wrong. We had to take time to build up the groundwork and say, no, that's not the way we're going to do things. Time goes by, you do better at it. We also found that we would start out very calmly, and when the person didn't agree with us in round one, we'd get to round two and we'd be speaking a little louder so that they totally understood how we felt, and that still didn't work. So then we got to the point that we thought, we need a third person, and we had a very dear friend that was a priest. His insights were so wise, and he said, the next time the two of you have an argument, I want you to place a lit candle on the table between you and remember that's God. Did the way we talk to each other change after that? We were so much more polite, respectful. And it was such a good lesson for us, and it stuck with us the rest of our lives. I feel like if you have the respect and the love for each other to begin with, then you're going to look for the common ground to make sure that you can make it through. And sometimes even the decision that you have as you go along, something else will happen that will give you a plot twist that you weren't expecting that's better than what you even thought of.
That's true.
Yeah, good point.
Being a stroke survivor or a caregiver, both people come into the relationship from such a different point of view. The stroke survivor is really struggling, trying to figure out who they are, trying to figure out if there's another shoe that's going to drop. Depending on where the stroke takes place in their brain, some people are faced with making decisions that are not safe, and that has to be top priority, is to make sure that the stroke survivor is safe at all times. How are you going to approach somebody who has a brain injury, which means that the brain is injured? You don't expect somebody who bashed their knee to get up and start running a marathon. The brain for most of us is quite a mystery, a beautiful machine that keeps us going, but it's still a mystery. So as a caregiver, how do you approach someone? And Annie, I remember you saying with Darryl, when he was in the throes of his stroke, you could tell the way he was talking to you wasn't correct. But at that time, you had nothing in your arsenal to prepare you for what you would need to do. What have you learned since that point?
First of all, just to kind of be Darryl's cheerleader and to encourage him and to just try to be able to inspire him to want to do things on his own. You're going to want to step in. You're going to want to make things easier for him, but you've got to just restrain a little bit so that he's able to stretch. When Darryl had his stroke, we had just moved into this house. It was a brand new house and we had it built, and he had his stroke 2 weeks after we moved in. So there were no window treatments, anything like that. And I had, lots of people who I love, are good friends who were just like, we'll come over and we'll hang the curtain rods and we'll do all of these things. And I said, no, I want Darryl to do it, because he's so good at that. First of all, before the stroke, he's so meticulous about everything and where it goes. And I just wanted him to know it didn't matter how long it took for these things to get up. I just wanted him to know that I believed in him enough that as he progressed, he could put them up. And I wasn't impatient about it. I don't even know how long it meant. It was probably several months. And then when he did it, it was slow and it was hard for him. That was just a small way of me just showing him, you're going to get there. It's going to be okay. Those were some of the little things that I did all along. He couldn't shower on his own. He couldn't make the bed at all. Very early on in the stroke, we would kind of sit down, write down, or just talk about all of the tiny little steps that he was making. And we did this consistently so that he could see that he was making progress.
Bob, you had a similar situation, you and Sharon.
It's funny you mentioned the nurse. We had an occupational therapist that was more like a drill sergeant than anything else. And anytime Sharon would go to get me something or, something that I could do, she'd, no, let him do it. He can do it. She was always at the bedside and encouraging me. She would go down to the rehab center with me and watch me try to get up on the parallel bars. And she was there when I took my first step. We did the same thing. We did a lot of documenting. We kept track of my progress. One thing that really stood out, and it was probably day 2 of my stroke, and I was still in the intensive care unit. She gives me this rock, and I proudly keep it displayed in a kind of a goblet that I made as a woodworker when I was turning wood. And she gave me the rock and she said, I want you to have this rock and know that you have been my rock my entire life. And now I'm going to be your rock and I will never leave you. And I kind of had a bewildered look on my face because we loved each other so much and we were such good friends. I'm kind of thinking, well, honey, I know that. Just the way she did that, just symbolic. And she was there every step of the way. Every time I did my rehab, she would drive me back and forth. Once I got out of the hospital, we got to where I was able to return to work, but she would drive me back and forth to work. In the meantime, she would take me up to a vacant parking lot. We'd switch sides and she taught me how to drive again. Finally, September, 13 months after my stroke, we decided that I'd give it a try on my own. She rode shotgun. I went to pull out onto the main road and a car was coming around the bend real quick. I panicked, slammed on the brakes, pulled off to the side, pulled into the next parking lot. She got out and drove me to work. The next day, tried it again and I mastered it. I did fine. So the day after that, I went solo. Every day after that, I always had to call her when I got to work.
That's a difficult thing for the caregiver to let go, and also for the stroke survivor to find that point where he or she says, I can do this. I guess because of where my stroke was, I was a little more daring than what I should have been. Fortunately, Bill was very stoic. He would let me try something. He would wait until I said, I need help before he offered it. I think one of the hardest things being a caregiver, and I'm changing hats here because towards the end of Bill's life, the reverse was happening in our roles where I needed to care for him. For both of us, it was a matter of being there, talking about things in common, maybe something funny that happened that he would enjoy the humor of it as well, or bringing something that you've been struggling with and just asking him to pray for you because you knew he would. I think one of the most difficult things for caregivers to do is to lose the word don't. Don't do this. You're not ready. Don't try this. It's too complicated.
Yeah, and Sharon won't say don't, but she will say, if I'm working outside, it's time to take a break. And she's really good about that. There's times where I'm almost finished and I'll say, I'll be right there. And she knows where I'm at all times when I'm working outside, which is very, very sweet.
So as a caregiver, do you feel more or less like an advocate between family and the hospital?
Sharon and I have always had so much fun together. So that carried over into the hospital and that attitude as well. And in turn, I think we got the same attitude back from the staff, the same respect back from the staff, which made it a lot easier for Sharon to help take care of me.
Darryl, I'm going to ask you this question. What are some of the things that would have helped you when you were recovering? Your house hasn't changed, you have. So when you got home, how was your house changed to accommodate your needs?
Well, actually, nothing was changed in the house, but my need to grab things increased. So I was always putting my hands on the walls, grabbing furniture just to keep myself balanced. One piece of equipment that we did get was a chair for the shower so that I could sit down and shower and not have to worry about getting dizzy and losing my balance within the shower.
I think one of the things that we haven't discussed yet, and it's because we all know each other's history and we need to let the audience know this as well. Darryl, tell us a little bit about the type of stroke that you had because it was so unusual.
Yes, I had a cerebellar stroke. So it was in the cerebellum. It was one that I was misdiagnosed 2 times, so they didn't find it for 4 days. The complication with my particular stroke was hydrocephalus, and that was, I was actually literally hours from death when they did find it. I was life flighted to another hospital, and the surgeon had to drill a hole in my head to release the pressure to see if my brain would react. He wasn't too sure if my brain would react, and I was in neuro ICU for 6 days. Taking me into surgery, he told my sweet wife I may be in the hospital for 6 weeks, and I may never leave the hospital. A lot of faith was drawn upon. One thing that I wanted to mention while I was in neuro ICU, now I don't have a lot of memories from Monday night when the stroke took place to Sunday, but I know that my sweet wife, at the end of every day, whoever was there, they would circle my bed and we would all hold hands and we would have a prayer. I remember maybe one of those prayers. Actually, I don't remember the words. I just remember holding somebody's hands. But I know that was taking place for me. And I know there's a lot of faith involved, and that helped me through that process, a rehab facility. I know I said a lot more than what you asked.
Annie, you had mentioned a little while ago that you have a couple of phrases that have helped you through this. I know a lot of times you'll see people who have pictures of T-shirts. One of the things that we have for anyone who's on the show or anyone who's watching, they just send me a self-addressed stamped envelope. I will mail them a bracelet, and it says "Stroke Survivor Strong" on the one side, and then on the other side it says "Don't Count Me Out." You have an online store. You have baseball caps,
T-shirts, long sleeve, short sleeves, all of them will say either "Stronger Every Day" or "I Can Do Hard Things." And then we also have hope.
I hope that there's people out there that will contact you to get those. You're also quite a cook and science teacher. Tell us a little bit about the science.
Yeah, so I just feel like I have the best part of teaching. I am known as Miss Annie in the Birmingham area, and I teach in-school field trips. I dress up in a costume. I have 15 different programs that I teach. Penguins and polar bears, I dress up as a penguin. We do a blubber and a fat experiment. Kids stick their hands in this blubber and fat and then in ice, and everything is just all hands on. So this is my 26th year of Miss Annie. It's so much fun. I go to a different school every day, and it's a 30-minute presentation, and I go classroom to classroom.
That's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Then COVID happened, and then I couldn't go into the classroom. I started Miss Annie's Home and Kitchen, which is just really easy, simple recipes. And I post a video every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Facebook. And we're on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and we're figuring all of that out because we didn't know if I would be able to get back into the schools. And now that's kind of become really fun. We have lots and lots of followers currently. And so now I'm trying to balance both of them and just figure it out. So, and Darryl, he sometimes is a guest and he helps me cook different things.
Isn't that something that was so traumatic in your life has changed the direction of your life and made things better?
Yes, right.
One of the things that really concerns me a lot about stroke survivors, there are some people that are really struggling with trying to find themselves, trying to find the reason, the purpose of their life. They just don't see it. What kind of encouragement would you give to them? What would you suggest to people that just feel hopeless?
It's a real thing that individuals feel. And what I found to help me is to have a goal or multiple goals and to be able to work toward the accomplishment of that goal. Whether it was 300 steps out in front of my house without falling down with my cane in my hand to make sure I could do that, or get behind the wheel of a car and actually drive. Now, the first time I did that, I scared myself silly, and I came back, parked the car, and said, I'm not ready for this. I think to overcome the struggle, strive to accomplish it. Once it's accomplished, recognize that and know that it was a good thing. And then set another goal. I think that was the biggest thing for me, along with Annie's support.
Bob, did you ever experience that?
Yeah, no, not did anything like that cross my mind. My attitude was to look for motivation. I wanted to make sure I got back to work. I wanted to learn to be able to drive again. I wanted to keep my independence or get my independence back. And Sharon was behind me 100% and would always encourage me. When I got home from the hospital, I probably weighed close to 300 pounds. Before my stroke, I was about 340 pounds. So when I got home from the hospital, I kind of had a head start on losing weight. I knew that I had to get healthy and I had to recover. We would just start tracking proteins, carbs, calories per meal, and a supplement or two. That was probably about it. It was just learning to eat the right nutrition. And within a couple of weeks, we had a good idea of the menu, what I could eat, what I couldn't eat. Now I'm right around 200 pounds.
And when I first got home from rehab, Bill went to the store and I listened as the car pulled out of the driveway and realized that was the first time I'd been totally alone for months. If something happened, nobody was there for me to call out for them. Nobody was bringing me medication. I wasn't being willed for another therapy. I was here in my house by myself. And I had a similar situation as Darryl and Annie did. We'd been in our house for 6 months when I had my stroke. The same thing as you. I had one side of curtains up, so I was a little bit ahead of you. And I felt the same way. It's going to sit there until I can work on this myself. The part that was hard for me was realizing how much I had changed, how much I was not like the person I had been before the stroke, and not knowing if I would ever get back to that point. I went into a major depression for probably about 4 or 5 days. I walked into our den, I closed the door, closed the shades that we had in there, and I didn't come out. I just turned my head to the back of the couch and waited for myself to melt. I thought, this cannot be what I'm supposed to live with for the rest of my life. After the 5 days, there was no more tears to shed. There was light shining in through the curtains. There was a peace in that room, and I was ready to come out. I wrote a book about what it was like to have a stroke because there had not been much that had been written from the point of view of a stroke survivor. I remember the very last edit that I went through, and I looked at that and thought, actually, I was grieving for me. I had lost me, and I needed to get through the grieving process before I could move on and accept who I was now. That's where my new life actually began. And by the way, I want to say to caregivers out there, you're our heroes. We may treat you poorly at times. We don't have the tools anymore, depending on where the damage and injury is in our brain. We may not be able to articulate what we want to tell you. We may not be able to see well enough to show you what it is that we feel. So the only way that we can express ourselves is through our frustration. And unfortunately, the people that are closest to us are the ones that usually receive that gift. And I apologize to all caregivers for having to put up that.
Well said.
If there's one or even two things that you would like to leave for a caregiver or a stroke survivor to help them make their life better, to make their relationship better, what would you want to say to them? Bob, let's start with you.
I would say don't be afraid to ask for help. There's still so many things that I can't do. I'll get frustrated at myself because I can't do it. We're all working as hard as we can to get better. It's very tough to do it alone. You have the people that can help you, have them help you.
Darryl, how about you?
Example of my mom, what she was willing to do, tried to get back what she had lost, helped me, inspired me. She didn't have the use of her right side, but she was willing to learn again how to write with her right hand. We could tell, it wasn't what her previous handwriting was, which was very elegant, but she didn't care. She was working through it, and that was her desire to get that back. One of the major things that I used in rehab was fishing. I've lost so many lures in trees because I couldn't figure out how to cast it right. Or I would fall down. Luckily, I didn't fall in the water. I would fall to the side, as I cast, I'd lose balance but, I continue to try.
Annie, how about you?
You can grow from these experiences as a couple, and you can strengthen your relationship through it. One of the things that I tried very hard to do was to have compassion for Darryl, but also to have compassion for myself. Lots of compassion toward your companion is important, and then to have that compassion for yourself too, and to take care of you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. The important part is the relationship between the people, whether they're friends, family, or the stranger on the street. We always have time for each other. We will see you next week.
Just remember, everybody, don't count us out. God bless. Have a great day. Bye-bye.